Hi, and welcome to Speakers on Edge. We're doing 15 minutes of fame, and today our voice of vision with a message that matters. Her name's Chris. Chris, who are you?
I'm a cycle breaker, and in doing that, I recognized that after cutting off my narcissistic parents, I came into my psychic gifts, surprisingly.
Okay, that's an opening. Okay, take us back to when you actually did this. What was going on? What was happening for you? I mean, narcissism is a terrible situation to be involved in. What was happening for you?
Well, for most of my life, it was normal. Narcissism is what both of my parents are. They each fall on different ends of the spectrum. So it was my normal. I didn't question it for a very long time. I, in fact, thought I was the problem because I was made to believe I was. And becoming a mother started to awaken me to narcissism and to what that meant, and recognize that it's a generational pattern until someone chooses to break that. And I didn't want that to be me. I tried very hard to keep a relationship with my parents. My father went as far as hitting one of my children, and I chose to forgive him and still tried to have a relationship. And it wasn't until he then threatened to hit my husband that I said, I'm done. This is enough. And I cut off everyone in my immediate family that I grew up with. And it was the most difficult decision I ever made. And that was the first time I really chose a moment for myself, but more so my family, to protect them. And in doing so, it just put me on this healing journey. I didn't know it at the time. I just thought I was just saving people, saving my children, saving my husband from the horrors of my childhood, after exposing them to it probably longer than they should have been, because I wasn't aware of it enough yet. And the more I healed, the more I recognized that it allowed for my nervous system to calm down. And when our nervous system is calmer, we are more open as a channel to spirit. And I didn't know that. I just learned this. I suddenly started seeing dead people in my mind's eye. I would be having a conversation with someone, and there I'd see some spirit. And I was floored by it. Who knew? Not me.
Okay, so here you are. You're protecting your family now. And I can only imagine the heartbreak that was going on at the time, and having to explain to the children, no, those people aren't around us anymore. How did you handle looking after, is it one, how many children do you have?
I have 4.
How on earth do you explain to 4 children that these family members are not going to be around?
Luckily, we already had distance. So we went from seeing them once or twice a year to then not seeing them at all. So it wasn't as big of a shock as it probably would have been had we been seeing them regularly. And because when it comes to having narcissists in your life, there are these patterns. So my children were already aware of these patterns, they were already seeing it. And they were also younger. So I was basically able to use the best language for them at the time. So I basically told them grandma and grandpa are in a timeout until they learn to behave better. And they fully understood that. And they just kind of carried on as they would. They didn't often ask about them, but because of the type of parents I have, and they're, especially my mother, who's extremely vindictive, I would get very nasty letters and phone calls from her. And over time, we let our kids see this because I wanted them to know what we were doing. And as they became older, they were going to be able to make their own choices too. But I knew at the time it was very important for my own mental health to not have any contact, and for my children to have no contact, especially because I have such a volatile father that his reactions can't really be managed and puts us in a state of hypervigilance. I didn't want that for my children. So they were able to recognize this as feeling safer. And they probably started to recognize the changes in me. I was happier. I was I was just doing so much better on so many levels and coming into this place of peace that I never knew or understood before. And they got to witness that. So I think the gradual process was very easy, at least it seemed so. I don't want to fully speak for them in that, but at least what I saw, it seemed to be this gradual understanding that, we're doing so much better not having them in our lives.
And as you got that peace, as you came into that peace, and you're healing the layers, because let's face it, years of experience, you go deeper and deeper and deeper. Did you find going deeper was harder, or did you find that as you went through each layer, each layer actually became easier, even though it was deeper?
I would say that was inconsistent for me because there were times I was very upset with myself. I really had to go through that process of forgiving myself, especially as a mother. The fact that my father hit one of my children was probably one of the most difficult things for me because I think I deep down knew that would happen. And I did everything I could to help keep my kids safe. And yet I exposed them to my bully. But that was my father. So it was really hard to just be like, no, I'm not going to have a relationship with him because he's a bully. Uh, I think I was a little naive to think that my children were not going to be uh, exposed to the same kind of treatment I received because he was a better grandfather than father. But yeah, some of those layers were really hard. And then other layers were much easier because they were eye opening and they helped me heal. But even the harder ones still helped me heal because it allowed me to get to the deeper elements of why I am who I am, why I behave the way I do, what my adaptation style was growing up, and how that's applied to my life today. So, it's been a really important part of my journey. But yeah, those layers, it really is an unfolding.
Yeah, I know. And so here you are, you're unfolding into this more calm place, and these other abilities are showing themselves. Can you go into a little bit about what actually happened when you discovered a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah, like I said, I started seeing people that had passed, and just in my mind's eye. I started hearing inner thoughts very clearly. So especially of children, and I I think I was just more amazed than anything. But especially when it came to spirit, I didn't know how to communicate with them. They would just appear, but I didn't know what they were trying to say. So I started taking classes on psychic mediumship to help me understand that process and how it works. And ultimately, it unfolded so many other of my abilities. All my clair senses essentially came on board, where I was able to communicate in in every way I could think of, and then some. And ultimately, I did shift away from mediumship because I really love working with the living and helping the living. And I feel that all of my trauma growing up and being a cycle breaker and what that means, it put me on this path to really help others in a way that I had to learn myself. And that's okay. But maybe I could help others not have to go through as difficult a time, especially when they're trying to heal.
And so let's go into how you help others. Let's be a little bit more specific about, I mean, you've got this beautiful heart, you've got these amazing abilities, and because this calmness has come amongst you, how do you actually help people? And what sort of people can you help?
Thank you for that question. I help people because I read their chakra system. I can essentially climb into each of their seven main chakras, explore what it is that chakra wants to reveal, and share with them how their energy has been affected through trauma. So, most people that tend to find me have dealt with childhood trauma, narcissistic abuse, or identify as an old soul, because old souls not only have trauma from this lifetime, but from many lifetimes. So people that connect with me are finding all of those elements, and I am then helping read their energy system to tell them, here's what your energy is showing me, and here's how to heal that. And I like to give people actionable tools so they can take that with them and work with that.
Okay, can you explain what is an old soul? And you also mentioned earlier your clairs came in. So for people who don't actually know what the clear senses are that you're talking about, can you just explain what they are as well? And also my question about the old souls?
Yes. So an old soul, depending on how you look at it, I like to explain this in two ways because I feel like people have two different levels of understanding. So one aspect, an old soul is a soul that has lived many lifetimes. But when we understand that we are essentially living all of these lifetimes at the same time, that an older soul has more experience and is living more experiences. So they're feeling the weight of that and the heaviness of that. And there is a density that kind of starts to connect to their energy. And you just feel that an older soul, a lot of people, when they see an old soul child, they just feel that like, oh, wow, that child's such an old soul. When it comes to the clair senses, it's basically, claircognizance is like a all knowing, but it's all clair relates to being clear. So clairvoyance is probably the most common people know. That's clear seeing. Clairaudience is clear hearing. Clairsentience is clear feeling. A lot of people will confuse clairsentience with claircognizance because it's feeling and knowing. There's an element of similarity. And lesser known ones are like clear smelling, clear tasting. Those came on board for me a little later. But essentially, it's our senses that we kind of already have as humans, but then they expand to then connect to things we can't necessarily see in the 3D. So when those came on board, I would say they were coming on bit by bit. My first clair that I probably have always been connected to in this entire lifetime, just wasn't sure what it was, is clairsentience. And most people know that as just having really strong gut feelings. And, just knowing things before they were going to happen. So that's more my claircognizance. So those are the things I definitely had growing up, but again, just wasn't aware of it because I just thought that was me and I just assumed everyone knew that and could do that. So yeah, awakening and coming on board to all of these other gifts made me understand my path a little better.
So are you helping people embrace their gifts, or are you more helping people heal from the narcissism?
But more so helping people heal. Because what I've noticed is the more I've helped people heal, the more their gifts start to come online. So it evolved into my helping them with their gifts just as much as helping them with their trauma, but more so helping with the trauma.
And so, as a psychic, the industry today, there's lots of people out there saying, hi, I'm psychic, and they sit down with tarot cards and they have all the woo-woo assortments around them. You don't sort of fit, as I look at you now, you don't fit that woo-woo type of stereotype.
I love that you say that. A lot of people do tell me that, and I appreciate that. My background is in business. So, before I ever came into my gifts, I was working in New York. I was working in the mortgage industry. My parents worked on Wall Street. So I was very much raised to be that business type of person. And I was, and I did very well. But when it comes to my work, I wouldn't say I get into the full woo woo. So a lot of people say they like to work with me because I seem like a more grounded psychic, which
Mm-hmm.
is not to suggest that anyone that's more woo woo and less grounded is not great. It's just we find who we connect with and who we're energetically aligned with. So people that find me probably just feel more energetically aligned with someone who has more of that, I guess a foot still in the muggle world is what I would look at it.
I love the Harry Potter metaphor. I'm a big Harry Potter fan.
Likewise.
Yes, I'm admitting that in public. If there was one message that you could give somebody who's watching today, what do they need to hear from you?
You're going to be okay. It gets easier. It just usually gets hard first. But once you get past that, because you've chosen you've chosen to take the very difficult steps and making difficult decisions, it just gets easier from there and you connect to peace. But you can do it and you will.
And here we have a voice of vision with a message that matters. It's okay. You'll get there. It does get harder, and then it becomes easy again. Trust the process, folks. Trust the process. Chris, how can people find you?
My name is my website, so chriswasko.com is the best way to find me.
Fantastic. And we'll also have your photo on our speakersonedge.com 15 minutes of fame guest page, where we'll have your photo and a button with a link to your website as well. Chris, thank you for being such an incredible guest with a voice of vision that truly does matter. Your message today truly does matter. That's it for the show today. We'll see you next time on Speakers on Edge.